Альбина, и вчера я снова видел тебя с этим слащавым юнцом. Импозантный черноволосый мужчина нервно прошелся по кабинету, остановившись около рыжеволосой красивой женщины. Вперев в Альбину красноречивый взгляд, главный бухгалтер предприятия ее мужа требовал объяснений от жены патрона на правах ее постоянного любовника. Оторвавшись от своего отражения в зеркале пудреницы, Альбина подняла на Эдуарда бесстыжие глаза. «И что здесь такого? Витя, с которым ты меня видел, мой тренер по фитнесу?» Эдуард закатил глаза. «Но я видел вас не около спортивного комплекса, а в кафе. Он целовал тебе руки». Альбина вновь раскрыла пудреницу. Приоткрыв свои полные манящие губы, она принялась покрывать их очередным слоем глянцевого блеска. Открытым ртом она промямлила: «Нравлюсь я мужчинам, Эдюш, но ничего тут не поделать. Между мной и Виктором ничего нет». Распределяя блеск, она с чмокающим звуком сомкнула губы, а затем, слегка притронувшись с ярко накрашенному ротику рукой, шутливо послала любовнику воздушный поцелуй. «Ревнуешь?» – кокетливо спросила Альбина. Вместо ответа Эдуард отвернулся. «Ну-ну, ревнуй, тебе полезно», – беззаботно выдала Альбина, из-под тишка чмокнув любовника в щеку. В сумочке зазвонил телефон. «Алло, Витюша? Да, буду без опозданий». Не обращая внимания на изменившееся выражение лица любовника, защебетала Альбина. Продолжая болтать по телефону, Аля вышла из кабинета главного бухгалтера. Наблюдавший за женщиной главбух проводил ее недобрым взглядом, затем достал из кармана носовой платок и принялся оттирать со своей щеки отпечаток губной помады. «Щебечи, птичка, пока можешь», – зло прошептал он вслед уходящей женщине. Через минуту дверь кабинета вновь открылась, и на пороге появился юноша в кепке курьера, украшенный логотипом фирмы, принадлежащей боссу Эдуарда. В руках парень держал пачки с офсетной бумагой. Подойдя к столу главбуха, курьер принялся складывать бумагу прямо на разложенные там документы, чем привел главбуха в бешенство. «Не туда! Куда кладешь? Отчеты!» – прошипел парню Эдуард. Сохраняя каменное выражение на лице, курьер продолжал заваливать пачками бумаги стол главбуха. «Тьфу ты, совсем забыл, что ты глухой!» – сердито проворчал Эдуард, жестами пытаясь остановить деятельного курьера. «Туда неси!» Отчаянно жестикулируя, главбух указывал на дверь в смежный кабинет. Мужчина кивнул и отнес остатки бумаги туда, куда указывал начальник. Эдуард принялся собирать оставшиеся на столе пачки бумаги в стопку, беспрестанно ворчливым голосом ругая недотепа. Вот зачем шеф взял глухонемого на работу? Понятное дело, что за предоставленное инвалиду место надо меньше платить налогов, но курьером-то брать зачем? Красное место для него, работа уборщика. Вслух рассуждал главбух. Его занятие прервал телефонный звонок. Указав вернувшемуся курьеру на сложенную стопку, Эдуард отдал распоряжение звонившему. «Постоплату на счета фирмы не переводи. Заведи ее на офшор, сейчас продиктую номер счета». «Да, разумеется, получишь свои проценты». Не обращая внимания на глухонемого юношу, распорядился главбух. Он не обратил внимания на то, что юноша вышел не сразу, ненадолго замерев в дверях с кипой бумаги. «Здорово, Герасим!» Звонко поприветствовал немого юноша в такой же курьерской кепке. Вместо ответа глухонемой принялся отчаянно жестикулировать. Второй курьер беззлобно засмеялся. «Знаю, ты не Герасим, а Валера. Ну да ладно, у меня работы много. Пока, Герасим», – продолжил издеваться юнец. В ответ Валерий только пожал плечами, глядя вслед удаляющемуся коллеге. Тяжело вздохнув, он пошел в сторону лестницы за новой партией бумаги. Парню предстояло самое неприятное – занести бумагу операторам. Глухонемого парня почему-то сразу не взлюбил офисный планктон. При появлении нового курьера операторы принимались бросать шпильки в его сторону, изощряясь в злословии, будто бы устраивали соревнования друг перед другом, кто из них сильнее унизит глухонемого парня. Около лестницы Валерий нос к носу столкнулся с шефом. Говоривший Иван Юрьевич коротко кивнул своему работнику, не отрываясь от слов абонента, которого внимательно слушал. «Да, иду сейчас к главбуху», – говорил кому-то босс. Зажав одно ухо рукой, Иван Юрьевич продолжал. Я не понимаю, почему моя фирма уже 2 месяца выходит в минус. Согласно составленного отчета, мы несем многомиллионные убытки. Откуда? Как? Я должен быть в плюсе, и вдруг моя фирма оказывается в таких минусах, что я скоро по миру пойду. Взволнованно говорил в телефонную трубку пожилой шеф. Без стука, войдя в кабинет главного бухгалтера, Иван Юрьевич без приглашения уселся в его кресло. «Эдик, и как это понимать? Откуда у нас минус? Кредиты? Под что мы взяли кредит в 1 миллиард рублей?» Не сдерживаясь, Иван Юрьевич принялся орать на главбуха. Эдуард переменился в лице. Куда только делась его самоуверенность. В его повадках появилось беспокойство, статный мужчина вдруг стал похож на озирающуюся крысу. Кредит был необходим для строительства нового предприятия. Вот отчеты, вот расходы на материалы, смета вся. Эдуард подобострастно пододвинул шефу пухлую папку. Кто разрешал принимать такие решения без моего ведома и без ведома моего зама? И еще больше разозлился начальник. Ваш заместитель в курсе. Попытался оправдаться главбух. А я тогда почему не в курсе новой стройки? В бешенстве заорал Иван Юрьевич. Завтра же собираю совещание. Продолжал горячиться босс. Лицо пожилого директора покраснело, лоб покрылся испариной. «Хоть бы тебя удар хватил до завтра», – мысленно пожелал ему Эдуард, бесстрастно глядя на то, как пожилой шеф бессильно хватает воздух ртом, пытаясь ослабить стягивающий шею галстук. Главный бухгалтер явственно почувствовал, что запахло жареным, но в тюрьму ему совершенно не хотелось. Все зло от женщин. Набирая непослушными руками известный только Эдуарду номер телефона заместителя шефа, думал проворовавшийся главбух. Ведь это Альбина придумала, как украсть деньги у мужа. Ее идея. Только если что-то пойдет не так, в тюрьму отправится не она, а он, Эдуард. Причем срок получит не он один, потянув за собой множество сообщников, в том числе и заместителя босса. Альбина же выкрутится, уедет в теплые края. Станет жить в шале у моря с новым юным любовником, в то время как наряженный в телогрейку Эдик будет валить лес где-то под Магаданом. Альбина лишь притворялась красивой безмозглой куклой, у которой на уме лишь брендовая одежда, салоны и драгоценности. Это она разработала план, как обанкротить фирму престарелого мужа, охмурив для начала главного бухгалтера. Коварная женщина посулила ему безбедную жизнь за границей. Он, будто очарованный красивой самкой самец павиана, слепо ей поверил, открыв офшорный счет не на себя, а на нее. Когда с глаз спала пелена, что-либо менять было уже поздно. К украденным деньгам имела доступ лишь одна Альбина. Ну ничего, если я предоставлю мужу на тебя компромат, никуда ты с деньгами не денешься. Его служба безопасности не даст тебе выехать из страны. Мстительно шептал Эдуард, складывая в конверт снимки совместного отдыха Альбины и ее фитнес-тренера. Упаковав фотографии и заклеив конверт, Эдуард набрал номер неверной любовницы. «Если ты не дашь мне доступ к счетам, я перешлю твоему мужу фото, где отлично видно, как ты проводишь досуг в его отсутствие. Сама понимаешь, что после этого никуда ты не сможешь выехать. А удалю все твои интимные фото только в обмен на доступ к счетам». Эдуард продиктовал любовнице код от банковской ячейки. Нажав на кнопку селектора, главбух велел секретарю прислать к нему немого курьера. Юноша явился незамедлительно. Эдуард написал ему код ячейки и адрес банка прямо на конверте. Альбина попыталась выкручиваться, но понимала, что попала в ловушку. Быстро прикинув, что лучше отдать украденное, чтобы не потерять больше, в ответ женщина продиктовала код доступа. Совершенно не стесняясь юноши, которого считал глухим, Эдуард в его присутствии продолжил разговор с любовницей, записал кодовое слово и цифры. Он проговорил их несколько раз вслух, чтобы не ошибиться. «Отнесешь конверт в этот банк. Вот адрес и код ячейки. Ты понял?» Глядя на бесстрастное лицо глухого курьера, Эдуард продублировал свои слова на бумаге при помощи шариковой ручки. Курьер прочел написанное, утвердительно кивнул и заспешил к выходу. Тем временем разгневанный шеф решил провести запланированное на завтра совещание в срочном порядке. Подозревая главбуха в нечистоплотности, Иван Юрьевич решил провести срочное совещание без него. Когда дебаты были в самом разгаре, в кабинет, где заседали члены правления фирмы, вдруг ворвался юноша в одежде курьера. Не обращая внимания на недоумение и упреждающие жесты членов правления, парень спешно подошел к креслу Ивана Юрьевича, чтобы передать ему конверт, полученный им от главного бухгалтера. Юноша выдернул ручку из карандашницы, стоявшей на столе шефа, и принялся что-то торопливо писать прямо на ладони обескураженного Ивана Юрьевича. Служба безопасности среагировала мгновенно. Благодаря расторопности немого курьера главбуха взяли как раз в тот момент, когда он вводил код доступа к счетам со своего служебного компьютера. Деньги были возвращены в фонд фирмы. Проворовавшемуся главному бухгалтеру наяву светила поездка в Северный округ. Никто из его подельников не ушел от справедливого возмездия. Срок получил не только Эдуард, но и заместитель Ивана Юрьевича. Альбина не входила в штат работников фирмы мужа, но ее причастность к мошенничеству тоже удалось доказать. Не получить тюремный срок она сумела, но ей не удалось избежать нищеты. Оборотистая дамочка ранее подписывала брачный контракт, где значился пункт об изменах. Изнеженной Альбине пришлось вернуться в малогабаритную квартиру матери. Чтобы проучить неверную и вороватую супругу, Иван Юрьевич не дал позволения на то, чтобы жена забрала свои брендовые вещи, драгоценности, дорогое авто. После случившегося к Альбине моментально потерял интерес красавчик Витюша. Тренера не интересовала обнищавшая любовница. Он тут же переключил свое внимание на более обеспеченную дамочку. «Большое тебе спасибо, Валер, что вывел на чистую воду всю эту шайку-лейку». Иван Юрьевич крепко пожал руку смущенному юноше. «Я ведь и правду не знал, что моя покойная сестра родила ребенка. Наши дороги разошлись еще в юности, после одной крепкой ссоры мы не общались. А потом сестра умерла. Я узнал о ее смерти только через 5 лет после трагедии. Не знал, что у меня есть племянник. Если б знал, то тебе бы не пришлось расти в интернате для глухих и слабослышащих детей. Ты уж прости меня». Просьба о прощении далась пожилому мужчине с большим трудом. Иван Юрьевич всю жизнь работал как вол. После распада СССР ему удалось сколотить капитал, чтобы открыть свое дело. Маленькая фирма росла и развивалась до тех пор, пока не стала огромным предприятием, с филиалами в разных городах. Директор фирмы был уже в годах. Многолетняя гонка с развитием собственного дела порядком измотала Ивана Юрьевича. Пожилой мужчина страстно желал отдыха, но не мог верить свое детище в чужие руки. После того, как вскрылись махинации, Иван Юрьевич приблизил к себе слабослышащего племянника, стал вводить его в курс дела. Женившись на закате лет на хищнице Альбине, Иван Юрьевич не успел завести детей, поэтому отнесся к племяннику как к родному сыну. После выпуска из интерната парень стал искать своих родственников, но почти все из них умерли. Ему удалось отыскать только своего родного дядю, который предложил ему работу курьером на своем предприятии. Увидев изменения в статусе объекта насмешек, офисные крысы моментально изменили свое отношение к юноше, которого раньше считали глухонемым. Они ошибались. Парень не был глухонемым. Валера был слабослышащим, но все же ему удалось расслышать, понять и запомнить слова главного бухгалтера. Благодаря этому удалось вскрыть весьма масштабную аферу. Если вам понравился рассказ, просьба поддержать меня кнопкой палец вверх. А чтобы узнавать о выходе новых интересных историй, при подписке нажмите колокольчик. Всего вам доброго.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? "I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.